I stand to be corrected in answering this, but it's my understanding that House Bill 44 relates to a taxing district, not necessarily a county. I could be wrong in that, but nevertheless, the property is going to be assessed at or about 100% of its fair market value. So the city's option, or any taxing district's option, is to raise, initially they can raise 4% without any question of the total revenues. Now, another thing that needs to be pointed out is that new properties, new houses that are built, new factories that are located, are over and above this 4% limit. Now, they'll go on the roll next year, and that they become part of the base, but anything new is over and above this 4%. Now, there is also mechanisms in House Bill 44 that allows for referendum voting, where if the taxpayers or the voters in any given area so desired, they could raise their tax rates by any percentage, but it has to be done by referendum if you go over the 4%. But again, our job is essentially to assess the value of the property at 100% of its fair market value. Now, we can't puff the city and leave the county slack, or vice versa. So we have to, that's our job. We'd be malfeasant in office if we didn't do that.
Mr. Rose. The last 20 minutes, I've heard each of you speak, and it's become obvious to me that each of you are very knowledgeable about the job. Obviously, you've all three passed the test. You're similar in background. You all three graduated from Alamo High School. And if I could vote, it would be extremely difficult to me to determine who I would vote for. My question would be, what quality or experience do you have that sets you over and above the other two candidates?
I think probably to answer your question, my primary foundation of my, if you want to call it a platform or whatever, it's an approach that I would take and plan to implement during my tenure in office, and that is to try to maintain the office in as professional a manner as we can. The state has, as I said a while ago, 4 or 5 years ago, they got interested in it to the extent that they wanted it legislated, that it would become a more professionally run office. The state laws requires it to be done equitably, and I think that's part of would be my platform. I think my basic training has been in economics, and I think economics is you're concerned with making value judgments, and that's what we will be required to do for the next 4 years, is to make estimates and judgments based on economic value, and that will be another area that I think my background could help me, and I believe as for the last 20 years I've been a farmer, and as a farmer I've been everything from a mechanic to a veterinarian to a lobbyist in Frankfurt for special projects, and I hope to bring that background with me to for the benefit of all the people in Calloway.
First of all, I guess I would ask you to vote for me because of my experience and a past track record. I've served 4 terms in the Kentucky House of Representatives, representing the people of Callaway County in the 70s. I think essentially, obviously all 3 of us have qualified by standards of the state. So qualifications, we'd all agree, are equal. The thing that I would probably ask you to vote for me for is because of that experience. As I mentioned earlier, if you're going to serve the taxpayer and their interest, regardless of whatever office you're in, a background such as I have as a businessman, as a farmer, as a state government official and a legislator, I think it would enable me to best serve those needs. I don't have the time to stress the fact that state government, as most governments are bureaucratic in nature. They are not realistic. They work on theory. They do not work in practicalities. So I think given the experience, you're going to have somebody that when they pass an administrative regulation, which is not state law, that we have to adhere to, that's unreasonable or unfair in most people's judgments, then it's incumbent upon us as PVA to be able to go up and not take everything Frankfurt dishes out just because Frankfurt said. You're going to need somebody that can stand up to the Commissioner of Revenue, to the Secretary of the Revenue Cabinet, and to the Governor or the legislator and say, this isn't working. It's not fair. It's going to take somebody with that kind of initiative and that kind of background, and I think obviously I could hit the ground running. Secondly, I think in those positions that I alluded to earlier, I've been fair. I don't think I have ever been questioned as far as integrity or fairness with people. You've got to equate each person's position and treat each one as a taxpayer in an equal and fair manner. And fairness is the utmost importance. You're going to have to be able to justify every action that you take. Both you're sort of in a catch-22 in this position. You've got to justify what you're doing to the state, and you've got to justify what you're doing to a person's next door neighbor. So from that standpoint, that would be my emphasis in running for this office.
Mr. Nanney?
As being schoolmates and friends, and we basically have the same educational background in elementary, secondary school. The qualifications that I would have that might make show me up a little better maybe is the fact that I have been working with the public, directly with the public. I'm talking about on a one-on-one basis for the past 21 years, almost 21 years in the insurance business, and prior to that I worked with a tapping company. On a day-to-day basis, I'm already involved in evaluating property, and evaluating not especially for the PVA position, but in evaluating property at fair market value, at replacement cost, and this is what primarily we insure. We have some insurance that we write at the actual cash value, which sometimes is less than market value and certainly less than replacement cost. So I think that my past experience in working with people and the fact that I have run a successful business at the same location for almost the past 13 years, for 12 and a half years, and that I have been working with people on a one-on-one basis. And I think this is what this job requires, is that when someone comes in, that you be able to talk with them and be able to answer their questions, and if not answer their questions, find out and get back to them.
Thank you, Mr. Nanney. Questions will take about 45 seconds of each candidate.
Okay, thank you. One of the industrial recruitment tools that's being used is tax abatement for new industry coming into the communities. If you were the PVA and the EDC board came to you and said, we want to waive taxes for 5 years for 300 jobs for XYZ industry, would you be in favor of that?
If statutory allowances are made and a legislative and executive body so recommends, and it's legal within the parameters of state law, I wouldn't have any particular problem with it. I think obviously we're going to have to, you can drive anywhere down in the smaller towns in Tennessee, much smaller than Murray, and they're eating us up with the recruiting industry. So we've got to get on the bandwagon. Listening to the mayors, we've got to do something in whatever it takes. Now I think the state went overboard probably with Toyota, and I don't know what the tax situation is there, but I think we got a little wild and woolly. It should be short term to begin with.